Far out in the vast emptiness of the Pacific Ocean lies one of the most isolated places on Earth, Easter Island, known to its native people as Rapa Nui. It is a place that feels removed from time itself, surrounded by thousands of miles of open water, as if the world forgot it existed. Yet on this small volcanic island stands one of the greatest archaeological mysteries ever discovered: hundreds of massive stone figures known as the Moai. They rise from the earth in silence, facing inward toward the island, their hollow expressions frozen in stone, as if they are still observing something that modern humanity has yet to understand. No one knows the full truth of how they were created, why they were built, or what truly happened to the civilization that once thrived here. What remains is a haunting puzzle made of stone, soil, and silence. The Moai statues are not small carvings. Some reach over 30 feet in height and weigh more than 80 tons. They were carved from compressed volcanic ash at the Rapa quarry, a place that still holds unfinished statues embedded in the rock like they were suddenly abandoned mid-creation. The sheer scale of the operation raises immediate questions. How did an ancient society, with no metal tools and no beasts of burden capable of carrying such weight, manage to carve and transport these gigantic figures across the island? Even more disturbing is their placement. The statues are not randomly scattered. They are deliberately positioned on stone platforms called AHU, often facing inland rather than toward the ocean. This means they are not watching the sea for incoming visitors. Instead, they appear to be watching the people who once lived there. As if their purpose was not decoration, but surveillance. When European explorers first arrived in 1722, they encountered a population that seemed shockingly small compared to the monumental ruins scattered across the land. The island itself appeared stripped of its forests, almost barren in places, with only grasses and small shrubs covering much of the terrain. Yet the Moai stood untouched, silent witnesses to a lost era. The question immediately arose: how could such a society have existed here, and what had become of it? One of the most widely discussed explanations is ecological collapse. According to this theory, the people of Rapa Nui may have gradually destroyed their own environment. The construction and transportation of the Moai required enormous resources. Trees may have been cut down to create rolling logs, sleds, and ropes. Over time, deforestation could have spiraled out of control, leading to soil erosion, loss of crops, and a breakdown of the island's fragile ecosystem. Without trees, there would be no canoes for fishing far offshore, no materials for large structures, and no way to restore balance. A once thriving society could have slowly consumed its own foundation until nothing remained. As resources became scarce, competition would have intensified. Different clans may have turned against each other, each trying to secure the remaining food and land. The Moai themselves may have become symbols of this conflict. Some were deliberately toppled, their massive bodies thrown face down into the dirt, as if one group was attempting to erase the spiritual power of another. The island, once filled with reverence for ancestors, may have descended into cycles of violence and desperation. There are even accounts and interpretations suggesting that famine may have pushed the population into extreme survival behaviors. Oral traditions and later interpretations hint at periods of cannibalism, not as a cultural norm, but as a tragic result of collapse under environmental and social pressure. Whether fully accurate or exaggerated, these stories contribute to the darker image of what may have unfolded on this isolated island. However, not all researchers agree with this narrative. Another theory suggests that the story of self-inflicted ecological destruction is incomplete. Some argue that European contact played a far greater role in the collapse of Rapa Nui society than previously believed. After the arrival of outsiders, disease spread rapidly through the population. Later, slave raids in the 19th century devastated the island, kidnapping many inhabitants, including leaders and knowledge keepers. With them disappeared oral histories, engineering knowledge, and cultural memory that might have explained the true purpose and construction methods of the Moai. In this version of history, the downfall of the island was not purely self-made, but accelerated and deepened by external forces beyond their control. Yet even this explanation does not fully resolve the deeper mysteries. One of the most unsettling discoveries came when archaeologists began excavating the Moai more carefully. For many years, people assumed they were simply giant heads buried in the ground. But when excavation continued, it was revealed that the statues have full bodies, extending deep beneath the soil. Elaborate carvings on their torsos suggest that what we see above ground is only part of their true form. Over centuries, sediment slowly buried them, as if the island itself was attempting to reclaim them. The Moai were originally fitted with white coral eyes and dark stone pupils. When placed into the sockets, they are believed to have symbolically activated the statues. In Rapa Nui tradition, the statues were not just representations of ancestors but vessels of spiritual power known as mana. This power was thought to protect the living, influence nature, and maintain balance between the physical and spiritual worlds. In this sense, the Moai were not statues in the modern understanding, they were guardians. But if they were guardians, why are so many of them now lying broken on the ground? Across Easter Island, archaeologists have documented numerous Moai that were deliberately toppled. This suggests organized conflict, not natural disaster. At some point in history, the belief systems that supported the construction of these statues may have collapsed. Whether due to war, famine, ideological change, or societal breakdown, the once unified cultural force behind the Moai fractured into competing factions. The act of toppling a Moai would not have been merely physical destruction. It would have been symbolic rejection of an ancestor's authority and the spiritual order it represented. What makes the mystery even more profound is the island's isolation. Easter Island is one of the most remote inhabited locations on Earth. There are no nearby civilizations, no easy routes of escape, and no quick access to external aid. If a society begins to collapse here, it cannot simply migrate elsewhere. It is trapped within its own consequences. Every environmental mistake, every conflict, every resource shortage becomes magnified by isolation. The island becomes both a home and a prison. And yet, despite everything, the Moai remain. Weathered by centuries of wind, rain, and salt air, they continue to stand or lie where they fell, refusing to disappear completely. Some still gaze inland as if waiting for something to return. Others lie broken, half buried, their faces turned toward the ground like silent witnesses to an ending that was never recorded. Modern science has provided many possible answers, but no single explanation fully captures the truth. The construction methods remain partially speculative. The transportation techniques are still debated. The timeline of societal collapse is not entirely clear. And the meaning behind the Moai continues to inspire both scientific research and mythological interpretation. Perhaps the most unsettling idea is not that we lack answers, but that the answers we have are incomplete. That the story of Rapa Nui is not a simple tale of rise and fall, but a complex web of human ingenuity, environmental pressure, cultural belief, and historical disruption. Today, the island stands as a warning and a wonder. It reminds us that even the most isolated civilizations are not immune to the consequences of their actions. It also reminds us how easily knowledge can be lost when a society breaks apart, leaving future generations to interpret ruins without context. And so the Moai continue their silent vigil. Not speaking. Not moving. Not revealing their secrets. They remain exactly as they have for centuries, watching an island that no longer understands them, and a world that still cannot fully explain them. The mystery of Easter Island is not just about stone statues. It is about humanity itself, its creativity, its fragility, and its capacity to forget. And perhaps that is the darkest secret of all.